Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now, from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show, All Things Moore County, for Dorothy for 2025. Believe it or not, this starts our 16th year.
Hard to believe it's been that long.
Yeah, and this is going to be a great show, and it's a great show to kick off the year with. My guest for the entire hour is Clio Carroll. She is a real estate broker in Moore County. She's also a real estate broker in a couple of other counties, which we're going to talk about as well. Real quick background. About 4 or 5 years ago, I met Clio. She was a listing agent. I did not know who she was at all. And I met her in the driveway of a home she had listed that my clients purchased. And I remember saying to my client, I don't know her, but I have every time I send her a blurb or a question, she's got a very quick answer. Well, she handled that closing in such a professional way. She was so accountable. There was never a question that went unanswered. And my clients were very happy to get the house, and I found out from speaking with Frank Thigpen, there was a story about how you procured that listing.
Yeah.
And he told me about it. And so since that time, I've kind of had a front row seat in the last 5 years of watching her and her ascent in our business. She's one of the top brokers in Moore County. She probably has the most effective social media presence of anybody that I've seen. And the reason that she does is not just because of the content, but because of the consistency. It's almost daily. And it's not about scorekeeping. It's about sharing herself and sharing information and content for buyers and sellers where she's giving them something to ponder or something to think about. It's a pleasure to have you. And after we spoke, or I think in December, we were talking about a property, and in passing, I said, we've got to get together and do this. Your ascent has been remarkable, and you're like a snowball going down the mountain. As it gets down the mountain, it gets bigger and bigger. And there's a story behind your beginnings, but right now I want to just focus on you, on your business, on you started as an appraiser, I believe.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You did. And this was a whole new experience for you to segue into a new career. And
Right.
It didn't start as a real estate broker.
Well, I got licensed as a real estate broker December 21st, 2017.
Yep.
Which, hard to believe, I think it's actually almost 8 years ago now. But
That's right.
At the time, my background, my degree was in finance. I had managed medical practices, done a lot of bartending and waitressing. I was in the Navy and flew planes and did all these different things, right? So I didn't feel like a 6-week class really had me to hit the ground running and sell homes. And I also didn't have the capital at that time, right? Finance background, I understand what it takes to do things. And so it just so happened that through the gals from my pre-licensing class, I got connected with an appraisal firm looking for trainees. And it seemed like a really logical path to me to do that for at least a year to learn about homes and loans. And I can't believe the things I learned. I mean, I can do a quasi-title search, not as well as an attorney, but I can go back through deeds and find plats and all these different things that I didn't realize not everybody can do.
Right.
So yeah, and so that also afforded me the time to do that building of capital, right? That building of stability, and we'll talk more about that. But
Yep.
I've always been like a very extra kind of person. Before I went into the Navy, I actually got my pilot's license, even though everybody said I didn't need it, right? So I want to be prepared.
How long were you in the Navy?
3 years.
Okay. Tell me the story about how you procured that listing on 15501.
Sure.
Because it has to do with Bernie's Hardware.
Yes.
Can you recall it a little
Oh,
bit?
yeah,
Frank,
yeah.
Frank told me from beginning to end the whole story.
So I was the first firm I hung my license at in Moore County was Carolina Property Sales, and I got a little tag for my car, for the front of it that said Carolina Property Sales, and I wanted to go get some screws to screw it into the license plate holder.
Right.
So I went up to Bernie's, and I had my big high espadrille wedge heels on, and I'm already 5'10", so I was probably 6'3" at that point. And
6'5".
I'm over 30. I don't care if I'm tall anymore, right? So I'm looking around for these screws and doing my thing, and then one of the Bernie's guys was helping me put out my car outside, and Jim Ransdell, the owner, came out, and he's like, "Hey, do you want to take a picture with me and pretend to be my bodyguard? I do that for all the tall people that come in
How
here."
tall is Jim?
Jim's got to be high. He's under 5'5".
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
so
right. That's where it started.
right. We took a picture together, and I said, "Yeah, I'm a real estate agent." And he said, "Well, my wife and I have to sell our family house. Would you be interested?" And I was so excited. "Oh yeah, I'll be there tomorrow. When do you need me?" And so that was a neat sale because it was a cool story. That's sometimes what I like about selling people's houses, especially a home that's been in the family for a long time.
Right.
I got the whole story of the house.
Right. How you procured that listing talks a little bit about you're willing to step outside of the box and reach out where there was maybe no possibility in some people's eyes, but for you, those possibilities pop up and you take advantage of them as they come along.
Yeah, definitely. I've been called an opportunist. I think I'm resourceful, and I talk to people, right?
Right.
I just start conversations.
Right. And you have a credibility and a personality, and the combination of the two is very positive. You walk into a room and you can draw people, and it's something that you've used to your advantage. But as you've gone along, maybe in the last 5 years, I'm not going to even guesstimate how many hundreds of transactions you've done, but you've become so highly proficient, not just in the paperwork, but the people skills, but also understanding values and understanding the motivations of your clients.
Right.
Because a lot of people don't do that. If you don't understand the motivation of the client, it's difficult to have a conversation.
It is, and that's the peeling back of the onion.
Right.
So funny, I recently had a buyer, and I had her in my car, and I was asking her just questions about, well, what do you like to do every day? Where do you like to go out to eat? They're relocating, and she looked at me funny, and I said, I'm asking you all these questions so I can better understand where I think you'll fit in this community. You're right. That's the key, and I'm always thinking, like, okay, this client is behaving in this way that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Why could that be? What's behind the music here? Mm-hmm. So how can I reach them and try to get this information to them in a way that they'll palate it and I can help them.
Right, but in a way that's also genuine. Mm-hmm. You had a video you posted, I think it was right after the holiday, and I thought it was very prophetic because it wasn't about real estate. It was about you. You were sharing yourself in a way that I thought was heartfelt. And you talked about all the noise in the world. You talked about how difficult some things are. There's so much stimulation out there.
Yeah. And
you did it in a way where you were looking for answers, and you were at the beginning of the year, and you were sharing that about you. Mm-hmm. Well, that personalizes you. And I think a lot of people who watch that perhaps think the same thing, but they may not put themselves in front of in social media and speak about it.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? What was the motivation behind that video?
I saw. Well, first of all, when there's any kind of something that means something to people, whether it's Veterans Day, Memorial Day, I like to try to put something genuine out that I'm really genuinely feeling, not just, oh, happy Veterans Day, blah, 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 right? And sometimes I'm not feeling that creative, or I'm, working with 7 clients in a day. It doesn't always happen, and I'm also not a big, like, quote unquote, resolution person. Like, sure, I could try to quit drinking coffee, whatever, right? Great. But, like, how can I be a better person? And the longer I do this and the more dynamic situations I deal with, and as my daughter grows up and I have, a romantic relationship, I'm like, the more I can understand people, the better of a person I'm going to be. And I thought that it was something that I feel like we all need to do that. This world is not slowing down. It's an incredible pace. And I'm sure it's not just me who feels the pain of a million messages on an app from my daughter's teacher every day, who she's trying to help us, right? Or all these emails and all these, holy crow. I mean, I have a lot of stuff on auto pay, but oh my gosh, like, I got to pay that invoice tonight. Not that I don't have the money. I just don't know if I have the time. And just trying to, like, quiet the mind and I can be a little prickly when I get overwhelmed. How can I slow that down?
It was a good demonstration of you being yourself and not worrying about what people were going to think.
Yeah, I don't care what people think. I care about being really good at what I do and being respected.
Which means that by nature you're not a people pleaser.
No.
Right. And the problem with people pleasing is you're always worried about what other people are thinking, and it's stopping you from being effective and working seamlessly. In the 5 years that you've been practicing real estate, when did you make the transition or the pivot from going out and starting to procure sales versus trying to serve other people? Because there has to be a shift when you first start.
Well, I think it's dual for me. That's a great question.
It just happens.
I think the only way that I was able to procure sales was by being of service in a genuine way.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Like,
Yep.
I remember, because when I first started was when it's the big pop, right? And for agents who have been around a while, they're like, what is happening? And for me, I was like, I guess this is what we're doing. But I remember telling buyers who didn't have a whole lot of working capital, I'd be like, okay, we've got to look for the house that's a 7 out of 10. We can't be looking for the dime piece house. Like, I remember being able to be pretty honest at that time. And that's grown because, right, my business grows and I get hit with more challenging and complex deals. And higher price things and greater responsibility, like a builder who wants my input on what's going to make what's going to sell. And I'm it's time in the saddle. I always tell people, like, don't say no to business that just doesn't sound, quote unquote, good enough for you, because you're going to learn something and you're going to build confidence.
Right. You don't work just in Moore County, do you?
No.
Tell me where you worked as well.
So I do business in Hoke County, so Rayford, and in Fayetteville, Cumberland County. And I do stuff in Harnett County from time to time. And then right now, it just so happens I've got a land and residential listing in Richmond County and Scotland County, not too far from the Moore County line. So the region, basically, I think of it as like the Fort Liberty, Fort Bragg region.
Yeah. So you made that decision a while ago that you would go anywhere to start your business.
And it was kind of an accident, right? Because when I was an appraiser, I was Oh my gosh, I was covering so many. If you looked at me, if I was an ant on a map, you'd be like, "What is this girl doing?" But I've always been, before I settled in Moore County, I was a bit of a wandering soul. I don't mind driving, and I had no idea that people thought that Fayetteville was a far drive.
It's not that it's a far drive. It's just that they have a whole legion of brokers who are in the Fayetteville area. So a lot of Moore County brokers just figure they're not going to go over there because they have brokers.
Yeah, and I was maybe too dumb to know that. So I just said, "Oh, okay, somebody needs a house in Fayetteville. Sure, let me research, and I'm on the MLS, and I'll figure it out."
Exactly. So you spend a lot of time driving.
Yes.
You're all over the place. So whatever special sauce you have worked in the last 5 years has gotten you to this point. When we come back in the second set, even though we talked about you segueing into the real estate business in 2017, the years prior to that were not easy. And just being in the real estate business for 5 years, assuming that everything was completely cool and good, is impressive. But from where you came from, even more so. So we'll talk a little bit in the second set about that. My
Sure.
guest is Clio Carroll. She's a real estate broker with Keller Williams, and she's one of the difference makers in Moore County. This is All Things Moore County. Welcome back to All Things Moore County. Our guest is real estate broker Clio Carroll, who's had a very successful, I guess, first 6 years in the business, and has made quite a name for herself in the market. And prior to 2017, when you got your real estate license, you didn't come from you didn't finish graduate school and then decide to switch gears and then just get into the real estate
No.
business. You had some shackles and you had some ankle weights on that you had to shed so that you could run the race that you have been running for the last 5 years. And it wasn't easy, but I'll let you just talk about how you evolved into our business and where you came from, because I think it speaks a lot about your strength of character and your grit and your determination. And you're on the other side of it, so now it's time to celebrate in a way.
Right. And I'm not the type of person to really look up and celebrate, because I always think I can be doing better. And that's probably part of what got me out of that situation. So I'll just share that I got out of the Navy in 2014, and what I thought was going to happen, which was I was going to be a fighter pilot, so did not happen. And, there are a lot of things that I guess that the short way to put it is I just kind of floundered for a while, meaning I really wasn't living up to my potential. I was doing great as far as earning income as a bartender, but I really leaned into alcohol and drugs, and I felt like I wasn't interested in or worthy of doing anything in a professional capacity, if that makes sense. And that downward spiral led me to a true low right before I signed up to get my real estate license. I kind of just landed in North Carolina as a result of my...
Where are you from?
I'm from Connecticut.
Oh, you are?
Yeah, I've lived
Okay.
in 12 states. I was
Okay.
in Baltimore before I came here.
Okay.
And I was waitressing like 12 hours a week at a Brazilian steakhouse. I was, with my daughter's father at the time, and had no idea, and just like in a dark hole, right? Like living day to day, not sure if I wanted to live another day, and really had just disconnected from any of the great support I'd had before I went in the Navy or even back in Maryland. But bottom line is I found out I was pregnant, and I'm going to credit like all this to my daughter, really, because everything changed for me when I found out I was going to be a mom. I've always wanted to be a mom, and I've always wanted, I want a good life for my child.
Right. She's 5 or 6 now?
She's 7.
She's 7.
She's 7.
You've posted, and she's adorable. You've posted a couple of pictures where she's gone with mom
Yep.
on road trips.
Oh, yeah.
And she's enlisted, I think.
Yep.
In Team Carroll.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Maybe sort of like a mini me, but it's just you and your daughter.
Yep.
The father is no longer.
So we're actually we're 50-50. He and I haven't been together since she was born. And they're like me. He's had some struggles with addiction, and maybe it took him a little longer to gain sobriety. And also, it was one of those things where sometimes, and I know we're in the Bible Belt, but sometimes you get pregnant, it's not with the person you're meant to be with, right?
Right.
But we're just trying to be good parents to her, and I'm really grateful. You know, it's been rocky. I'm not going to say we haven't been at odds, but we put her first. So she's with me here in Moore County going to school during the week, and then on the weekend she goes to Greensboro, and she's with her dad.
She just had a birthday.
Yes.
On New Year's Eve.
Yes.
And today is your birthday. 'Cause
Yes.
It's Saturday.
No,
The
yeah, my
11th.
birthday's. Yeah, today is my birthday.
That's right. So you guys can celebrate together.
Sure.
So, we've had in the past, we've had shows with alcohol, AA.
Yep.
We've had people who've come on and spoken anonymously, and they've spoken about the rules that they have to share.
Sure.
And how they overcame some of the obstacles that
Right.
that dependence. So, what was it about you, about your character, that enabled you to overcome all that from having where you were at a low,
Yep.
but you picked yourself up by your own bootstraps and have transitionalized? Where did that strength come from? I mean, it had to come from somewhere.
Well, from, first of all, like, I'm not, my daughter, right?
Yep.
Doesn't matter how I feel, right?
Right.
And then also, like, no one else is going to do it for me. I have not spoken to my parents in a long, long time. I can't call them up. I don't have anybody I can call and say, hey, I'm in trouble, help me. No, I have to do it for myself.
So you're the antithesis of a poor me.
I hope so.
You know that expression? There are a lot of poor me's out there. Woe is me. They have all the talent in the world and they have all the privilege, and yet they always figure out a way to interpret the environment in a way that puts them at a disadvantage. And I admire that in people, because you can spot a poor me a mile away, and you're the type of person, you get up in the morning. There are two types of people. One looks out the window and the weather's terrible. It's snowing, it's icy rain, but you're not going to let the weather dictate how you feel, right? Some people will look out the window and make a determination about how they feel based on the weather. Mm-hmm. And that's not that's not the right formula. So you've done this sort of on your own. The inspiration your daughter gave you, I think, sort of maybe was a shock to your system.
It was a restart.
Okay.
Because man, I had chased some big old goals and gotten there, but I lost sight of it. I lost like that inner drive that was like, oh, I can do this. Like, people think this is ridiculous, but gosh darn it, I'm gonna try.
Did you have that as a kid?
Yeah.
Were you very willful?
Yes.
As a kid?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the little vignette that I told you when I was 10.
Right.
I wanted a North Face backpack and a lacrosse stick when I was 10.
Right.
My parents were like, no. We had a friend that owned a farm in Connecticut. She said, why don't you go ask Cosby for a job? So I said, all right, cool. So I got a job picking vegetables in the summer, and I would just, labor laws, disclaimer, I was consenting.
Yeah. Right.
I would ride my bike, 5 miles to the farm, do my thing, ride my bike 5 miles home. So I figured it out. I was like, okay, cool.
You have a bunch of supporters in our industry. One that you and I share is the attorney Frank Thigpen. And I told him we were emailing about something, and I mentioned to him that I was going to have you on the show, and he writes me this email. He said, "That is exciting because she is not only a hard worker, she's smart, plus being a University of Maryland grad and a former Navy pilot. Holy cow, what a combination. Plus a great mom."
Aw.
Well, that just, came from him freely associating. And Tim Skibitsky, who is a home inspector, who I'll be seeing tomorrow, I told him you were going to be on the show, and he was very complimentary of how you do your business. And he gets a chance to see lots of different transactions through different brokers' eyes. And we've had many conversations about what we have to do and how we have to run our business. And he's a very bright guy, and he sees the whole. He has a good perspective.
Yes.
Right.
He's wonderful.
Right. So you've built up a team in your career. Your team of you have associates, you have assistants, but you're the number one. You're the alpha. You're the one that's out there working with the buyers and the sellers. You're not teaming up with another broker where you're locking arms and singing Kumbaya. It's you.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
And that's what you want in any business. You want to be the number one. You want to be the person who is setting the tone, right, and the rhythm. And you've created that, and you've got a trusted team behind you at this point. So you're acting in many ways as if you've been in business more than 10 years, I think.
Well, I think it's as a pilot, we base it on hours, right? 10,000 hours. So if I've been doing 50 deals a year for however many years, and I also I show up for a lot of things on those deals. Like I get into depth on everyone, I would say, maybe to my detriment because of the hours put in. But those woman hours potentially, that's very possible, could add up.
Are you an only child?
No.
Do you have siblings?
I'm the oldest of three.
You're the oldest of three. So where you are right now, and you mentioned you hadn't seen your parents in a while.
Yeah.
They haven't met your daughter.
No.
Okay. Do you ever wonder what they would think of where you are today?
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Right.
They weren't real proud of me when I got the pilot designation in the Navy, so I'm sure my mom would say something like, "Oh, you're a house waitress, and you're not,"
But today, but that's all in the past. Today is a different chapter.
Right.
Right. I mean, it's not the same story.
Yeah.
The story's changed.
Yeah, I don't know. Some people you can't make happy, and that's a good lesson for this industry too. Like I can bust my tail for clients, and they may just never be happy with me. They may never feel that I did a good job for them. And it's kind of the same situation with my parents. They may never feel that I'm a good person, and that's okay.
Are you close with your siblings?
Well, my brother died of a drug overdose 6 years ago, and he was in and out of psychiatric prison. So I tried to help him,
Right.
And then my sister and I recently have started having a better relationship, but it's hard, when you grow up in an environment where everybody's just trying to get out.
It's going to make you a good mom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes. I try to make everything butterflies and marshmallows and cotton candy at my house.
Well, let's come back in the third set and pivot back to talking a little bit about real estate.
Cool.
Clio Carroll is our guest. This is All Things Moore County. Welcome back to our final set of All Things Moore County with real estate broker Clio Carroll. Dorothy, Clio reminds me of me in this regard. When I was in the jewelry business and I was segueing from being a national sales manager into starting my own company, and I spoke with this business consultant. He was part psychologist, part consultant. He was a very smart guy. And the more I would talk, he would say to me, stop, stop, stop. He said, Bill, he says, you're like the guy who ran the race with all the people in the stands. You won the race. Everybody went home, and all your competitors went home, and you're still out on the track with the lights out running around the track. You don't stop. You have to stop. You won. And I get that impression about you because sometimes you can measure yourself by your success, but sometimes it's also good to measure yourself by your leisure time or the time that you're not working, where you can not be so hard on yourself, right, and just sit back and say, I'm okay. And I hope that for you, because it took me years to do that. And now that I can do that a little bit, I don't have to have a report card every single day. Do you know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my report cards, man.
Right.
I have a joke about myself.
Okay.
So my LLC is Clio LLC. So some days I'll say, man, my boss, that Clio LLC, she is not being kind today. She's making me get up on a Saturday morning, and it's terrible weather, and I'm about to show 20 houses.
Right. And your hours are crazy.
Yes.
I mean, you will, right. So how do you manage the hours and being a mom?
Help.
Okay.
Help. You know, I guess I have a little bit of masculine energy in this, and it's 2024. We can say masculine and feminine energy, and I can still identify as a female, right? Yeah, definitely a lady here.
Yep.
And I'm heterosexual, in case anyone's wondering. But
Want to add that in, okay?
My first priority is to provide a good life for my daughter. Like I did not have anything when I started in this business, and some of it has to do with bad decisions I made, and some of it is like, hey, family doesn't have money, whatever, that's cool, man. But first priority is to provide, and so when you're a business owner, you have to leverage things out. So as a mommy, I found people who love on Caroline, my baby, in such a great way, and have taught me things about her I didn't even know. And so, I just lean into that and try to make things really efficient. I'm an efficient person. We got a system.
You're efficient. We talked in the break. Thoroughness is
Yes.
very important to you.
Yes.
So you've been in the business now 5 solid years.
5 solid.
And I need to ask you this because it's a question that it's a litmus test that I use. When I work with another broker,
Mm-hmm.
I always say to myself, if my kid sister, was going to move down here from New York City, and she wanted to buy a property, and I did not have a real estate license, knowing what I know, what other broker would I refer her to?
Mm-hmm.
That's a litmus test I set up for every transaction.
Yeah.
So my question to you is, in your opinion, with your experience, what makes a great real estate broker? What makes a great agent? Because we have many people in our business. What are the things that are most important to you?
Knowledge, advocacy skills, thoroughness, responsiveness. There are a lot of things you can do as a listing agent to set the tone for a great, smooth transaction. And guess what? It's not sexy. It's not sexy going back and finding a plat book and a deed and paying somebody to measure the house and doing all these things, and asking all the utility questions, all this stuff that I don't think people want to do. But guess what? Pulling the HOA information, all these things that are not cute and fun, right, and take time. Guess what? When you do bring a buyer, it's going to be easier.
Right. I was at a listing appointment yesterday for 2 hours, and I used that expression. I said, because the kids were there, I was speaking with the mom, And I said, look, this is not exciting, sexy stuff.
No.
All the questions I was asking and the information I was gathering. But a good listing agent, to me, a good listing agent helps the buyer agents do their job
Yes.
much more easily and helps to defend the property, provide the paperwork, the supporting documentation in such a way that it helps the buyer agent communicate effectively with their buyer.
Right, and it makes it easy for them to write the offer.
Right.
Right, let's make that easy. And then as the buyer's agent on the other side, I end up doing the things that I thought maybe the listing agent would do. And that's fine, right? But but then as the buyer's agent, right, like, let's say all things being equal, listing agent's great, I got all that, inspections come in, then I have those connections and that will to go get more information on anything that's concerning. Or I know enough and I have enough context to say, I know this sounds scary, but per these professionals, it's not. So to me, it's having a great network and being thorough and having the information necessary to fully convey a property. And then, of course, there's a marketing piece as a listing agent, like really being willing to utilize great presentation. We can only present it once, right? So understanding that.
Right.
And I think we talked a little bit offline about the ability to be honest with people. It's uncomfortable when I have to tell clients that I disagree and here is why.
Telling people what they need to hear versus what they want to hear.
Right. And I told you this, you know what? Sometimes I give the facts and I tell people, I think you're being unreasonable. But ultimately, if you want to do this, that's fine. But here's what I think the outcome's going to be. Hey, surprise me, though.
Right.
You know?
Let the market...
Haven't been surprised yet.
Let the market tell you. So tell me about your skill set when you're the buyer agent.
Sure.
And you're working with a listing agent that is, I won't say clueless, but I'll say clueless.
Well, I don't know if clueless is fair. I think they just may be comfortable.
Not knowledgeable enough about the information on the house that you as a buyer agent need.
Right.
How do you deal with the co-broke situation? How do you deal with managing that? Because you have to work with the listing agent.
Well, got to be direct and polite. And you know what? I can't force somebody to go do something. So that's part of the reason why I've got backup. I've got people who work for me so that they can be hunting down the proper utility information, hunting down the proper HOA contacts, all that stuff. So I just go to work. You know, I can't make someone else do something.
Tell me about the role of your social media work in conjunction with how you run your business.
It's been amazing how much that has helped me. You know, I learned about social media from Kara Newton. I worked with her at McKinsey Real Estate in Ashboro before I came to Moore County. Sold for it was a short but brilliant run. But she had built her business using social media, doing unique makeup, kind of a multi-level marketing. So she taught me some of the tenets, and then I took it and made it my own. And I'm kind of a nerd. I love learning things like, the moisture percentage in wood, where microbial growth can happen, things like that. And I thought other people would find it interesting. Mm-hmm. And I knew that, like you said, consistency is important.
Right.
So I've found that has led to a lot of business for me, and that has been a snowball. You know, I have paid for leads in the past and converted them, but this past year I did not buy any leads. And between my social media and previous clients sending me more business and using me again, I was able to maintain my sales volume and increase it a little bit.
Yeah. So your referral business has got to be on an upward spiral.
Yes.
Right, and that's where you want to get to, for sure.
Yes.
The thing that I like about your social media presence is you're very transparent. Mm-hmm. You're not trying to be somebody that you're not. you're being yourself. And for some people, that's almost like, whoa, they're not ready for that because everyone is so used to the canned presentations, and you're not like that. I mean, you're very direct and you're very honest.
Yeah, and I think that when you get sober, right? Like as an active alcoholic or drug user, you're kind of hiding from yourself, right? And you have to be authentic to truly walk in sobriety.
Authentic's a great word.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
you kind of drop the ego too. It's like, I can't posture. That's just not me. I'm always going to do my best, but I don't have the time or the energy to put on a front because that's not what you're going to get anyways when you meet me.
Right. When I have kids on the show, I have some of the students who are in the arts.
Yeah.
And they come on, and they're in high school, and I'll ask them the question before we start, are you nervous? And they'll go, yeah, they're a little shy. And I said, well, you know why you're nervous? And they go, why? It's because you're thinking about yourself. You're not thinking about the other people that you're speaking to. You're only thinking about you. If you weren't thinking about you, you wouldn't be nervous.
Yeah.
And for some reason, that resonates.
That's okay. So I got to tell you a little vignette here.
Go ahead.
So when you lead a 12-step meeting, so you have to bring a topic, right? So let's say I was going to talk about gratitude, and I'm nervous. The solution is to pray that you help at least one person.
Okay.
So you kind of nailed it with that. Let's get away from the self-centeredness.
The nervousness. Because it's being self-centered.
Yeah.
We're winding down.
Okay.
Your next 5 years, I expect a lot of growth with you, and I think you probably have some plans in place that you are hoping to implement. I won't get into those, but right now, if people do want to reach out to you, how do they touch base?
They can call or text me, 860-368-9728. They can email me, Cleo@closewithcleo.com.
Okay.
Like close the deal. And my website is closewithcleo.com. I think there's a little message thing on there. And of course, Facebook or Instagram. I'm always on those too.
Yeah. I have a lot of admiration for you, and I think you do a great job, and it's a privilege to have you on the show and to have you share your special sauce.
Thank you.
Clio Carroll is our guest. Dorothy, good way to start the year. Very upbeat guest with a great message. This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week.